me. It just means the world to me that you take some of your own time and listen to what I have to say. My name's Rob Kerr. I've been in and around sport in Calgary for 20 plus years now. Longtime media person. I worked in the sports side of things, but to me, my passion has always been, grassroots sports. And I make this. It's kind of a joke, but it's also a badge of honor for me. I am the single worst athlete to ever have their name called by the Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, and I take great pride in that because it, to me, is exemplifies the power of sport. And what I have been working on, and what I've recently come to learn is my life's work, is getting kids into the bottom of the pyramid, making sure they get that good start, but also supporting them and understanding that the skills that sports teaches us, failure, learning to fail, learning to get back up, working as a team, competing, all of these things. These are so special for us to take through for the rest of our lives. And for the last 16 to 18 months, my partner, Tammy Christensen Snell, and myself have been piloting and working on the 10-20-30 project. And, I've been an advocate of the work that Sport Calgary does and was on the board for 10 years. And I love the opportunity to be able to spend some time with you today. So with that said, I am very excited to start my presentation today on the 10-20-30 project and tell you a little bit about what it is, why we're doing it, and how you can get involved. Because I'm like a lot of people. Yes, I get it. We have some challenges in sport, particularly in youth sports in our country, in our city, facilities, skyrocketing registration, all of those sort of things. But there's a lot that's right about sport too. And I want to work with you to kind of help bring that out. And that's really where the 10-20-30 project has come into play. This is the culmination of my life's work. I've piloted this now for the last 18 months. We've worked with the University of Calgary Hiskane Business School on having some students work with us and study the results. And uh, I just I get so excited with the opportunity to spend time with like-minded people like yourself who understand that we shape character, we build leaders, and we really impact our community through sport. And I just love this generation of athletes. And you knew there was going to be a but. Here's the but. But I think we kind of got to kind of ask them and impart upon them that there is a responsibility to move forward. I'm not telling anybody in this room anything they don't already know, that we're beginning to struggle with volunteerism, that we're beginning to, some of the things that we've taken for granted in sport and in other places in our community, they're beginning to, this is beginning to be a problem. So this is really about intentionally planting in a young athlete's mind the responsibility that they have to give back to the sport that has given to them so much, but also to give back to the community. But we're already doing that. That we're reusing skills that we're already learning, and we can transfer those into community building. So that's really our vision. Um, it's intentional learning. I have a thing that I call Control F. That's what is infused in all of my work with young athletes: competing, teamwork, respect, leadership, and fun. Somewhere along the line, we have forgotten that this is all supposed to be fun. It is supposed to be fun. And getting together as a team is fun. And belonging to a team is fun. And giving back to your community is fun. These are fun things. So Control F is very much at the heart, the pillars of what I talk about when we empower athletes, but also belonging and allyship. It's really, really important that we understand that need for to belong, to be part of something, to be accepted. I know that there's, and I'm not going to get into the politics of DEI and things like that, but understanding what our team is about, understanding what our sport is about, what the values are, what it means to be part of it, the respect, that's part of this too. Communication. Communication is so critical. And then I think what sets us apart is our community building. We really look at sport traditionally being a change, a conduit for social change, but also tied to directly the community. So really proud of what we've been able to accomplish here. And it really is about planting seeds. It's about, putting that in the young mind of a young athlete that, it's going to blossom at some point. And that's where the name came from. 10, 20, and 30. It's really about 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and 30 years from now. Now, we have programming that really runs the gamut, but today we're going to really focus on those kind of U13 to U18. I'll talk a little bit about U10s as well. But it really is fun to look at a young, 14-year-old baseball player and say, hey, where are you going to be in 10 years? And again, I believe that every athlete, myself included, I never played on a high level team. I was never a travel team. I was never an elite athlete. I was back when we were allowed to use division letters. I was always a D level player, but got so much out of sport, love sport, and sport's been my passion in my life. But it's about setting in their minds, okay, so you're 14 now. When you're 24, how are you going to be giving back to the sport's giving you so much? You still going to be playing? That's cool. That's great. We'd love to have you. Beer league, whatever. But maybe you're thinking about, well, maybe I'm going to be a coach. Officials. We don't do enough in sport to recruit officials. We can do more. Can we plant that seed? Maybe you can become a referee. Maybe you can become a mentor. But what about your community too? We're talking about your sport. What could you do in your community? What are your passions? What are the things that you think you can help in your community? Is it the food bank? Is it kids sport? Is it kids up front? Is it Woods Homes? There's so many opportunities. So then we ask them to be 34 years. Put yourself in that 34-year-old shoes. You're going to be 34. How are you going to be giving back to your sport? Well, maybe you're not playing anymore, but maybe now you're a head coach. Started as an assistant. Maybe you're a referee or a linesman. Maybe you're beginning to mentor. Maybe you're sitting on boards. And then the tough one for a 14-year-old is now you're 44 years old. How are you going to be giving back to your sport? Are you going to be a senior mentor, a senior coach? Are you going to be a senior official? Are you going to be on a provincial board? The same thing within our community. So that's where the name 10, 20, 30 came from. Really, this was brought to our attention actually from our friends at Sport Calgary, and it's one that I've latched on to. Um, we've all gone through this exercise. It doesn't matter our organization, it doesn't matter our sport. We do mission, vision, and values. This is an opportunity. This is a turnkey program. We come to you, we take care of it, but it's an allow you to opportunity to walk and talk your values and your mission. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is our U13 to U18 clinic. We have some other offerings, and I'll touch on those at the end. But I do want, because right off the bat, whoa, we got games, we got schedules, we ask a lot of the parents, recognize that. In the pilot, we tested out different delivery methods. We did a monthly delivery method of the modules. We did the one we kept coming back to, and the teams seemed to appreciate the most, was 4 modules in one sitting, then an event, and then the 5th module. All in all, the time commitment for you to do the modules of the clinic, the 5 modules, is the equivalent to traveling, playing a game, and traveling home. 2.5, 3 hours. That's what we're looking at. So right off the bat, I want to be upfront. Now there is an event or a community event or work or we'll get into that. So that is separate to that. So your team would be committing to doing something in the community as well. All programs that we do are delivered in person. They're tailored to the age group. We understand that Tammy facilitates as well, my partner. We understand that talking to preteen and teenage girls is different than teenage and preteen boys. We get that. But we also believe that we need to be there. We need to be able to look people in the eye. And I know module 1 is quiet. By the time we get to module 4, everybody's engaged. And we do that through activities. We have video, some of our own testimony. The last thing on earth anybody wants to sign up a bunch of preteens and teenagers for is, 3 hours of class time. It needs to be engaging. It has to be engaging. And our program is that. We do a lot of breaking up into teams, and we do little exercises against each other. And it's learning without knowing you're learning. And I'm really excited about the way that we've come up with our delivery model. As I mentioned, what I'm presenting today is our core clinic. This gives you a sense of what we're about. Again, kind of that U13 to U18. We can work with adults. We can modify it for younger groups, but I will talk about U10 specifically in a bit here. So let's talk about Module 1. This is where Control F comes in. We get in there, we do some activities, we're understanding the importance of competing, why we compete, why it's important to compete, how we respect our teammates, but also our opponents by competing. The fundamentals of teamwork, respect, leadership, and of course, fun. And I can't stress this enough. Fun, 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 fun. And if I haven't said fun enough, Let me say fun again, because we are in some cases losing that in our sports, that our kids are and our, it's just the way our society is right now. It's so much, it's so much, it's so much, but we got to stand back. We got to enjoy this. This has got to be fun, right? But we also know that these are elements that you are already instilling in your players. There isn't a single player that we're going to talk to that's going to hear any of this for the first time. They may hear it differently. They may hear it in a new voice. They may hear it presented differently, but we know coaches and parents and organizers are stressing these things. We just want to build upon that. And this is also where we begin to show them that you're going to carry these for the rest of your lives. These are going to be skills you're going to carry for the rest of your life. And you can use them off the field, off the court, off the ice, off the diamond. You can use them in real life. That's where we begin to introduce that. Module two. Now, I said we didn't want to sit here and lecture kids for 2 hours, but we're 3 hours, but we're going to give them a little homework. We're going to give them a little homework. Module two is one of my, I'm not allowed to have, it's like kids. You can't have a favorite module. But if I'm going to pick, module two is one of my favorites. This is where we talk about belonging, allyship, and communication. We start off with communication, and guess what I'm talking about? Active listening. So there's a bunch of adults here going, you're going to talk to teenagers and preteeners about, yes, I am. And I'll give you a little insight. The first thing we do is the world's greatest game. We break them up into teams and we play telephone, because nothing shows how fragile communication can be and how difficult sometimes it is to deliver those messages. So we want kids to start thinking about active listening. And that's part of this. Then we get into belonging. I mentioned DEI before. I try to be apolitical as much as I can. And this one bugs me a little bit, because originally when we started, it was diversity, equity, and inclusion, as it should be. But we've gone to belonging because, quite honestly, it's the best way to describe this. And one of the slides we show to these kids is diversity is being asked to dance, inclusion is being asked to dance, belonging is dancing like nobody's watching. And that's what every child should be given the opportunity to be. They should be given the opportunity to belong, be part of a team. So if we're going to be part of a team, what does that mean? And that's where allyship comes in. And in allyship, we talk about, okay, what's the culture of this team? What are the values of this team? What are the rules of this team? And, it's a hot button topic. Lots of pictures are taken. Okay, so if I take a picture of you, do I have your permission to share it? How do we communicate that? What are our rules? How do we get along in the dressing room? How do we respect each other? And if somebody makes a mistake, if there is a transgression, what is the way back for that person? We can't live in this cancel culture. We can't just say, "Oh, you made a mistake, you're out." Obviously, there's, extreme situations, and I grant you that. But within the confines of this locker room, dressing room, within the confines of this team, how does somebody come back? Now, I mentioned two homework assignments, and this was exciting for us in the pilot program, because we asked the teams to do two things and come back with them in module five. First is a communication plan for officials. I can't see you. Some of your eyes have rolled into the back of your head. I know that. There's that contentious relationship between officials, but quite honestly, this is the easiest part of this presentation for me to do, because there's always something fresh and brand new for me to share with the class. We know that we have a problem when it comes to officiating. We have a problem with recruitment. We have a problem with retention. We have a problem. So what we ask these young kids to do is, okay, you guys get together and come up with a communication plan for your officials, for umpires, for referees, for whoever. How is this team going to communicate and deal with them? Then we want them to present that to their coaches, and then we want that to present that to their parents. I am not suggesting for a second that the kids will develop a plan and that will supersede the rules of the coach. It doesn't work that way. But what we want are the adults to understand the work that the kids have put in to get to this point. And what we found was the teams were doing this. They were writing them down on poster board. And you saw the pictures we came in. They were taking it with them and putting it up in their dressing room. And we didn't ask them to do it. We asked them to submit them, but they were writing them out on their own. And then the second one is an allyship plan. And that is the rules of being on this team. How do we respect each other? When we're in the dressing room, we're getting dressed. If somebody doesn't want, personal space invaded, pictures, those types of things. This is really inspired and taken from You Can Play. I think they've done the great work on all of this. And I would point to them that this is really me absorbing what they've done and learning from that. So two homework assignments, they bring them back in module 5. And we ask them to share them with the coaches and the parents. I think it's good for the parents and the coaches to see these things and understand these things, and maybe it gives them pause for thought too. All right, module 3, connecting. This is where we're going to connect with the community. So I have a network of relationships in the charitable and nonprofit world and organization in Calgary, and I can certainly bring these to bear and have to this point, but also willing to work if you already have a predetermined charity. But in module 3, we want to talk about being a community ambassador. So immediately we can show them the LeBron James, the Christine Sinclairs, the Michael Backlunds. There's plenty of examples of mentors and celebrity athletes that use their platform to advocate on behalf of their causes. So really what we're talking about is, can you become that community ambassador in your own community? Can you identify what the charity does, who they help, and how people can get a hold of them? Then we bring in one of the leaders from that charity. In our pilot, we used Parachutes for Pets, and we used Kidsport Calgary and the Sports Equipment Bank. They come in, they talk to the kids for 20 minutes. Who, what, where, when, why, how, and what the needs are of that charity. Okay. So Kidsport comes in, they talk about how they help, they talk about the need. The sport bank would come in and go, geez, we help, kids get into sport and skating. If it's ringette hockey or even, ball hockey or broom hockey or lacrosse, we need helmets. So we're looking for helmet, that type of thing. And then at the end of this, we can quickly ask, okay, you just heard from, from Brody from the sports bank. Who is the sports bank? Who do they help? How can we get a hold of them? And that's how we become community ambassadors. This is going to resonate for some kids. Some kids it may not be their jam. That's okay. But we're talking about community ambassadors. This is where the magic happens. In module 4, we turn the chairs in, and it's guided planning. We already established that the team and the organization is committed to allowing these kids to plan an event. When we did the pilot, we expected bottle drives. We expected bake sales. We were blown away by some of the creative ideas and the ownership in which the players take. This is not about having the parents step in and run it and having the uncle buy all the cookies, that sort of thing. And that happens, and that's cool, and that's part of the ecosystem. I get that. What I ask from the teams and the coaches and the parents and the players is that this is player driven. They do the promotion. They plan now. Some of this obviously they're going to need help with in terms of picking a date that's available and a time. Now this can be an equipment drive. This can be raising money. This can also be going and volunteering their time and helping an organization clean or organize or put things together. There's all kinds of ways we can impact the community, but we really in module 4 want the kids to take ownership, and we have been just blown away through our pilots about how the kids have done this. We are working with the U17 lacrosse team next Thursday. They are going to be working with Kidsport Calgary and the sports bank. So I'm excited to see what they come up with, but they will come up with it. Now, I'll get to the results and the successes we've had, but I do want to preface this by saying one time at some point, we're going to do one of these and it's not going to work for the kids. That's okay. We cannot run from failure. We cannot fear failure. And throughout the module, throughout the clinic, we talk about the importance of, I say to these kids, I look them in the eye and I go, look at me. I am a product of failure because I have failed more than I have succeeded. And we need to understand the power of failure. So I am not afraid of a team participating in this event, trying something, and it doesn't work. That's great. That's fine. That's a teaching moment. Now, we have been successful to this point, and I'll get into our impact here in a second. So we've now done these first 4 modules. That takes us about 2.5 hours. Now we go away. The kids have come up with the event. They come up with what they're planning. We help them. We make sure that they're ready to go. But we step out of the way. 10, 20, 30 Project has nothing to do with that event. That's the kids. They run it. Now we're going to pop over and see it. We're going to take some pictures, and we're certainly going to talk to whoever. In the case of the lacrosse team next week, they're working with Kidsport. We'll get the impact from them. But a few times. Well, I'll show you. Um, this is U15 AA North Stars. They did a big dog toy toss for Parachutes for Pets. They learned from Parachutes for Pets that their thrift store and their supplies were really limited for bigger dogs, Labradors, German Shepherds, and stuff. So they decided that's the impact they were going to have. They were going to get food, they were going to get toys. And when they scored their first goal, they got permission from Hockey Calgary that people could toss dog toys on the ice, just like a teddy bear toss. We showed up that day not knowing what we didn't know and completely expected that we were going to have to. They had taken care of all of it. They had signs, they had done social media, they had talked to the officials, they had talked to the other team, they had a table set up, they invited Parachutes for Pets, they had a big dog and its owner from Parachutes for Pets, one of the clients, come in and drop the puck. Kids took care of it. They're incredible. They were incredible. Um, Now we get to module 5, and this usually takes place within a week, 10 days after the event. This is where the 10, 20, 30 part comes in. We come in, this module takes about a half hour to 40 minutes. We reflect on the project, we talk about the impact. Um, then in front of them is a piece of paper. And that piece of paper says 10 years from now, I want to impact my sport this way. I want to impact my community this way. Nobody's holding them to these things, but we want them to begin to think about it 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and begin to understand that progression from player to assistant coach or to official, or maybe I'm going to go work at the food bank, or maybe I'm going to volunteer my time, at the Alberta Children's Hospital. Again, it's not a wrong or right. It's just asking a 14, 15-year-old, 16-year-old, 17-year-old to start thinking about that. And that will go in the back of their minds. I have no misconceptions. I do not believe that a team of 20 goes home and 20 of these filled out documents go on a fridge and sit there for eternity until they've been checked off. It's that idea of writing, that idea of imprinting, and that idea of connecting sport to community. So that's module 5. That's what it looks like. Let's talk about our results. Well, from the individual, the participants, again, continue to build on those life skills that they get through sport, but also understand how they now connect to the fact that they're never going to go away. They're always going to be part of them in their office job, if they're in the service job, if they're a politician, wherever they're going to work. These are the skills that are going to help them. We want them to develop increased engagement to their sport and their communities. We need to be building volunteerism. This is a slow burn. This is not an overnight thing. This is about, funny enough, 10, 20, 30 years from now. So again, getting them to think about those roles. And again, connecting sport to community. I am a big believer of that. I know I see all the time on social media ringette teams that have done food drives, and hockey teams that have given the remainder of their bank account back to kids sport. We see things that are happening out there, like the Chrysler Good Deeds Cup. Most of you are already making that connection. We're there to support and reinforce it. Okay. Our outcomes in our pilot, pretty excited. On average, the impact that was going back to the charity, kids sport, Parachutes for Pets, was either $275 a player on average or about $3,000 a team. We saw, we saw bigger numbers than that, but we also had teams that volunteered. So you get into that, well, what's the value dollar figure of a team going in and spending 2 hours cleaning things for Parachutes for Pets? Well, a lot of value, because it immediately went into their thrift store. And if it wasn't that team doing it, it would have taken their regular contingent of volunteers 2 to 3 months to get that work done. So we do look for those values, and we want to share those values with the players as well. We want them, especially the kids that are later in high school and getting close to doing those post-secondary applications, they're going to want to show their work in the community, right? So our pilot project outcomes were very positive. That was U13 to U18. I do want to mention our U10 pilot, which we did this year for Hockey Calgary in partnership with Hockey Calgary, and it was called Coach Santa Mission of Kindness. So we did a U7 Timbits team in a modified version of the clinic. They came in, we did 25 minutes of games and talked about competing teamwork, respect, and leadership and having fun. And then they did a project for, they decorated some Christmas boxes and stuff. It was good. But what I really wanted to do was begin to set that tone younger about sportsmanship, about being a good teammate, about being kind in a way that kids could immediately gravitate to it. And that was using the character of Santa Claus, um, which is already, you know, prepositioned in their mind that they want to please, that they know who he is. So we didn't introduce a new character that they had to learn the backstory of. They knew Santa Claus. But we never the role of Coach Santa was is sport agnostic, quite honestly, and was agnostic because we got this question of, well, what if, what if it's culturally you're not. I'll get into the numbers in a second. In 2 months, I had less than 20 questions about Christmas. Less than 20. In 2,300 individual one-on-one interactions, I had less than 20 because I documented them. Six of them were, am I on the naughty or nice list? One of them was, why is snow cold? The rest took place in the final week of the program when they wanted to make sure I knew what they wanted for Christmas. Okay. But we really, really did some cool things with Hockey Calgary. So from November 1st to December 22nd, we visited 142 teams. We interacted with 142 teams. Most of those teams were U7 and U9, but we also did U11. And then we used U13, U15, and U18 as elves. So they came out and they assisted us. Okay. Now, the format was pretty straightforward. We had 8 weekly themes: teamwork, community, celebrating our victories, creativity. These were all drafted based on Hockey Calgary's values. For U7 and U9 players, these were the 8 things that they thought were most important. We created weekly videos that we sent to managers to send to parents to send to kids. So a little clunky there. Wish I could directly contact a kid with a video link. Can't do that. But we're working on ways to make sure that we expand that reach and that kids get access to it. We also made trading cards each week that featured elves and reindeer, but also featured the weekly theme to reinforce that theme. But it also gave me something to hand to the kid, a memento, an artifact for them to take home. We did bench visits, as I said, with the teams. In most cases, U7 and U9s practiced 2 on an ice surface, so we were doing 2 teams at once. It was about a 5-minute bench hit. It involved me asking them if they would join me on my mission of kindness, help spread kindness, and funny enough, they all agreed to that. Told them a little funny story about why I was in Calgary and why the reindeer weren't with me, that I was working with Hockey Calgary and that we run out of gingerbread and there was a facility in Airdrie, but I rented a truck because you'll be shocked with the number of kids that would follow me into the parking lot to make sure that I wasn't lying about the truck part. They wanted to know where the reindeer were. The reindeer were back home. They were practicing. I coached the team up there, and because there's we wanted to try and make it as inclusive and encompass and important, and it was bigger than we thought it was. I asked them all who the best hockey player at the North Pole was, and they would say me, and I said, no, I'm the coach, and they would say no, it's Mrs. Claus. Mrs. Claus is the best hockey player. She's our center. She's very much like Cassie Campbell Pascal. But when you looked at those young girls in U9 and U7 and they heard Mrs. Claus, their eyes lit up, right? So we were reaching them and sending messaging that way too. Then we would talk about that week's theme. If it was teamwork, how can we be good teammates, being kind, making that connection? We did a chant with everybody, and we taught them the chant at the North Pole: all for one, all for fun. There's that word fun again. And then we got them to stand up, turn around, and thank their coaches for being awesome. That was it. Outside of me saying I'm coming to Calgary to get some gingerbread, outside referencing everybody playing hockey back at the North Pole, there was no Christmas messaging. It was the messaging that we were trying to send. Then we would set up in the hallway in the lobby, and if the kids wanted, they could come and have a one-on-one. And I would say 75 to 85% of the kids did. Some kids didn't. You know what 6, 7, 8-year-old kids can be like. They would come over and I would spend 60 to 70 seconds with them and ask them if they joined the mission of kindness. They would ask them what kindness meant to them, ask them about the weekly theme. So it was creativity. What have you done that's been creative, or community? Who's in your community? Who is your school, your community, your neighborhood? And then we always gave them a task to do something to join the mission of kindness. Who brought you to the rink today? Oh, my mom and my dad. Okay. So in the car on the way home, will you say to mom and dad, thank you for taking me to the rink? You will. That's perfect. That's a great way to start the mission of kindness. We'd give them two cards, and I would say 95% of the time, mom or dad or grandma, grandpa, or the guardian or the big brother, big sister were there, and they took a picture. So we had a little sign that said, I was caught being kind," or another sign that, I joined the mission of kindness, that sort of thing, with the date, because I think as a parent, you can probably appreciate, especially with Santa Claus, there is some desire to keep those things as a record. Here he was when he was 5, here he was 6, she was 7, she was 8, sort of thing. So, through that, 142 teams visited, 2,180 players, plus almost 1,000 siblings as well. Our surveying said that 90% of the teams found it impactful. Real strong U11 interest. That was the one thing. We only marketed, we only sent our information, we only appeared on calls with U7 and U9 teams, but right from the get-go, we set up a Coach Santa email address at Hockey Calgary, and people could book the visits. Originally, I was just going to randomly show up at rinks, but once we put the address out there, we were booked. We, as best we can, we're looking at ways of streamlining and making that. This was a 2-month version. There's other versions of Coach Santa we can do. There's whatever, in the sense of almost 200 U7, U9 teams in Hockey Calgary. That may not be the same size for your sport. It may not work to be a month-long campaign. There's other ways to do this. There's other ways to look at Coach Santa, but this is the pilot we did. So it's an entry level for us into the 10, 20, 30 project. So I appreciate you bearing with me on that. I just wanted to explain that because quite honestly, I'm kind of proud of it. We want to work with you. We want to work with your organization because we believe in this. We believe in the tenets that sport provides. We believe in the connection between community and sport. And quite honestly, we believe in these kids. And, we're hoping that your organization, your sport, your club, your team, whatever, looks at us as being the way of being able to do this. We're turnkey. That's the one thing I would say is that, we come in, we got the modules, we'll connect with the charity, we'll set all that up. Your players run the event, we'll come back in, we'll summarize it with them. So, if this is of interest to you, please, let's chat. We're flexible, we're affordable. Somebody said to me, and we can get into the pricing if you want, but it's for the price of what it would cost you for a big pizza party and laser tag, we can do this. There's no quiet. I mean, again, I presented our clinic. I've shown you Coach Santa, but I believe in the positive disruption in sport. I believe we've got to break up the ways that we do things. So maybe there's a different way that this would work. We're open to listening to that. So, lastly, I got a QR code. So if you want a little more information, please scan the QR code, or I've got the single most egotistical email in the history of email, just me@robkerr.ca. Happy to do that. The QR code's cool because Braden helped me set it up, and it's awesome and a great way to connect, and you can answer, or it'll answer some questions for you there. So really, again, I can't thank you enough for spending some time with me today and listening to me ramble about this. I hope it comes across as that I'm very passionate about this. I'm very passionate about what we can accomplish together. And I look forward with the opportunity to work with you and to continue to grow this. So the little history of our little company is we've run pilots on both the 10, 20, 30 project and Coach Santa over the last 16 months and 18 months. And I guess you would say from a company standpoint, we're now going to market. That now we're beginning to work with groups. There's some flexibility into this. Obviously, we can work with you and your partners. If you have, sponsors or financial partners, we can work directly with charities. I'm meeting with a charity this afternoon that wants to look at something from a provincial standpoint. I like to think that I can think outside the box as well as anybody. And again, really, really, appreciate the opportunity. I just saw the text pop up. Nope. I've got a truck. I will go where kids go, and I will work with communities where kids are. And I am looking at a couple of provincial initiatives. So hopefully that answers the question, but Braden, that's it for the formal part. I know we're up against